Joe DiMaggio's 56-game hitting streak. The legendary 1941 hitting streak by the Yankee Clipper is perhaps the most iconic and dominant run in the history of the game. DiMaggio hit .404 and accumulated 91 hits during his streak, which is 11 games longer than the next closest consecutive game streak of its kind. No player since Pete Rose in 1978 has hit in as many as 40 straight games, and with the expanded usage of specialized bullpen arms in today's game, it is less likely than ever that the record will fall. Cal Ripken's 2,632 consecutive games played. From May 1982 to September 1998, Ripken didn't miss a single ball game. He broke Lou Gehrig's previous standard of 2,130 straight games that stood for 56 years and then bettered it by 500 games, all while playing one of the game's most demanding positions, shortstop. For most it, only 6 players besides Ripken have played in more than 1,000 straight games. To best Ripken's mark, a player would have to have perfect attendance for 16 years and then play a part of a 17th. Meanwhile, no active player has more than even 300 games played. Nolan Ryan's 5,714 career strikeouts. Even in an era where strikeouts are a bigger part of the game than ever, the sheer volume of Ks that Ryan accumulated is staggering. Ryan had 6 seasons of 300 strikeouts and 15 of at least 200. He has 839 more Ks than any other pitcher, and to catch him a player would have to pitch for nearly 30 years. Ryan did, while still averaging 211 strikeouts a year. Meanwhile, in the last 20 years, only 5 pitchers have reached 300 strikeouts in a season, with Chris Sale possibly making a 6th this season. Nolan Ryan's 7 career no-hitters. Throwing a no-hitter is the second most difficult single-game task for a pitcher besides a perfect game, and Ryan has done it 3 more times than any other pitcher in history. Ryan threw his first no-no in May 1973, and followed with his second one 2 months later, and his final one 18 years later at age 44. Only 4 active pitchers have thrown at least 2 in their careers, and only 4 other pitchers in history have thrown 3 no-hitters, which is an extraordinary feat but still dwarfed by Ryan's brilliance. Nolan Ryan's 2,795 walks. If one thing can be said about Ryan, it's that when he did something, he did it thoroughly. While his penchant for strikeouts was legendary, so was his frequency in issuing bases on balls. Ryan ran up over 900 more walks than any pitcher in history during his 27-year career. It is a level of control that he was uniquely able to sustain due to being able to pitch himself single-handedly out of his self-created jams. It is highly unlikely that a pitcher with such control issues would even be allowed to stay in the rotation in today's game, as he would be relocated to a bullpen role. Johnny Vandermeer's back-to-back no-hitters. With much due respect to Ryan's accumulation of no-hit outings, even he could not pull it off in back-to-back appearances. In 1938, Vandermeer issued consecutive no-hitters just 4 days apart. Since then, Max Scherzer followed a no-hitter with a one-hitter in 2015, and Dave Stieb had a second no-hitter broken up with 2 outs in the 9th inning of the encore attempt. Ewell Blackwell threw 17 straight no-hit innings in back-to-back starts but left before finishing the second start. No one has been able to equal the mastery of Vandermeer in 1938, and the idea of breaking it with a 3rd straight no-hitter is unthinkable. Rickey Henderson's all-time stolen base record. The stolen base is rapidly becoming a relic of the past, as the game has become far less reliant on base running to produce runs than it was in Henderson's day. Even in his time, Rickey was the exception to the rule, in many ways, and rewrote the record book for steals in a staggering fashion to even approach his 1,406 steals, which is 468 more than his closest all-time competition, Lou Brockett, would require, averaging 70 steals for 20 years. In comparison, only 2 players in the past 10 seasons have reached 70 steals once. Ted Williams' .482 career on-base percentage, widely regarded as the greatest hitter of all time, an honor that he certainly encouraged, Williams reached base with a regularity no one has matched. He led the American League in OBP 12 times. Since Williams retired in 1960, only 4 players have had single-season on-base percentages as high as his 19-year career average. Cy Young's 511 wins, 749 complete games and 316 losses. Although the majority of the feats listed here are limited to baseball's modern era after 1900, Young's feats are so extraordinary that we'd be remiss to omit them. His wins, losses and complete game totals are all-time records and testament to his effectiveness, durability and the time he competed in, when relievers were seldom utilized. To even reach 500 victories, a pitcher would have to average 25 wins for 20 years. Only 3 pitchers in the past 40 years have reached that many once, and with the expansion of relievers, starters taking credit for decisions is becoming less and less frequent. Walter Johnson's 110 shutouts. He is 20 better in this category than any other pitcher and had 11 seasons of at least 6 shutouts. To measure how strong of a showing this is over an extended period of time, it would take 25 years of averaging 4 shutouts a season to get within 10 of the big trains mark. The only 2 players to start their careers in the last 50 years to come within 50 shutouts of Johnson are Tom Seaver and Nolan Ryan, who each totaled 61. Jack Taylor's incredible run of endurance. At the turn of the century, no pitcher put in more work with more regularity than Taylor. From 1901 to 1906, he made 202 consecutive appearances without needing a relief pitcher. From 1901 to 1904, he actually made 187 straight starts without needing a reliever, but he interrupted the streak by making 15 appearances as reliever himself. Sam Crawford's 309 triples. The triple is the hardest hit to get in all of baseball outside of the rare inside-the-park home run, and from 1899 to 1917, the Detroit Tigers' Crawford made it a trademark habit. He had 4 seasons of better than 20 and 17 of at least 10. Only 3 players in the last 30 years have managed one season reaching 20. Take into account how rare this is. The only player to begin his career after 1940 to approach this mark is Stan Musial, and his 177 are just over half of what Crawford did. Chief Wilson's 36 triples in a season. Wilson set the record in 1912 for the Pittsburgh Pirates, and it has remained one of the game's most unapproachable records since. For context's sake, only 2 players in the last 100 years have come within 10, with the closest attempt being Kiki Kyler's 26 triples in 1925. Only 6 players in the last half-century have had as many as 20 in a year, and with the infrequency of the event in the modern game, this is one mark that is likely safe forever. Ty Cobb's .367 career batting average. Cobb played in a much different era than today's game, when contact was king. Regardless of the era, Cobb's mastery at running up hits has not been equaled since. His career batting average still stands head and shoulders above the best effort any other hitter has been able to sustain. Since 1960, only one hitter, Ted Williams, has finished with a career average within 40 points of Cobb's. Wes Ferrell's 37 home runs as an AL pitcher. This is a quirky record that has been established simply by the fact that rules adjustments have made it essentially impossible to break, since American League pitchers are not a part of the everyday lineup anymore. In the days prior to the designated hitter, Wes Ferrell connected for 37 career homers while a member of an AL squad, and his 38 total homers, one came as a pinch hitter, is also a record for pitchers. It would take quite the interleague spree to see that broke today. Hank Aaron's 25 Albanian Lex-Star games. Back in the day when they played 2 All-Star games, one midsummer and another after the season, Hammerin' Hank was a mainstay. However, with All-Star competition limited to just once a year now, this is a record that will likely stand forever. Hank Aaron's 6,856 career total bases. While Aaron's former reign as the all-time home run king was his main calling card to fame, it overshadowed the fact that he was much more than just a long ball hitter. In addition to his 755 home runs, Aaron has 3rd most hits ever, 3,771, 10th most doubles, 624, and walked over 1,400 times as well. His total number of bases accumulated is over 700, more than his closest competition in Stan Musial. Yankees' 15 World Series appearances in 18 years. The New York Yankees are the most accomplished franchise in major sports history, and at the peak of their powers it was rare to see a World Series without them involved. From 1947 to 1964, the Yanks represented the American League in 15 out of 18 seasons, winning 10 times, including 5 consecutively. In the constantly shifting cost and makeup of roster maintenance in today's game, such a dynasty is next to impossible to hold together that long. Boston Red Sox's 8 consecutive wins, postseason comeback in 2004, although not a record in the textbook sense, the fight back from oblivion that the 2004 Red Sox accomplished is as rare of a feat as possible, as it had never happened before or since. Down 3-0 to the New York Yankees in the series and trailing in the 9th inning of Game 4, the Red Sox fought back to win the game and the ALCS as a whole 4-3, before going on to sweep the Cardinals in the World Series. It marked the first time a team had ever come back from a 3-0 postseason deficit in baseball history and was the first World Series win for the Sox since 1918. Barry Bonds' 120 intentional walks in a season. Bonds' most famous record came via the long ball, as he is both the single-season and career home run champion. However, his most impressive mark is not via the home run. Rather, it is the extent that opponents wanted to avoid him connecting for one. In 2004, Bonds was walked a record 232 times, 120 of which were intentional. It was 52 more times than next closest single-season record for being avoided, which Bonds also owns. In total, he was intentionally passed on more often than the total of 8 major league teams that season. Fernando Tatis' 2 grand slams in 1 inning. Hitting a grand slam is an awesome culmination of a big inning for a team and ultimate failure by a pitcher. To have it happen once is devastating enough, but to have it happen twice in a single inning is a backbreaker, let alone by the same opponent. Fernando Tatis pulled off this incredible feat in 1999 against the Los Angeles Dodgers, while also setting the record for RBI in an inning. This feat is incredible as is, but the idea of it being broken with a 3rd slam is as unlikely as it gets. Chicago Cubs World Series drought. The simple mathematics of living long enough to see another team run up the generation-spanning dry spell of the Chicago Cubs makes this a record not likely to be seen by the eyes of the currently living again. The Cubs broke their century-plus World Series drought last fall, a streak that could take another 39 years for the Cleveland Indians to reach and 51 years for the Washington Nationals to meet. The overwhelming odds, and current returns, of both of those franchises make that unlikely.